touch back on this. So with that, let's get into it. Today's webinar is Stop Flying Blind, reporting that drives action. So trying to sort of make more value out of the reports. It is indeed being recorded yet. This will be available on our YouTube later. So quick introduction. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Xander, and I'm a customer success manager here at Prospect. And we'll be doing this little presentation here, and then we'll do a little Q&A afterwards to probably go through everything at the back. We're going to be going through the current reports in the system and some of their related features that are available in the CRM, so some of the core ones, as well as going into the report builder and walk through that in a proper little demo. And then we've got our learning outcomes here, sort of how to use the CRM data to spot risk and opportunity before it's too late. The CRM obviously has access to all of the sales data and engagement data, and so it's actually how that is being sort of processed to become useful rather than just seeing it all. Finding and using the reports that are already there. There are a lot of them that are quite useful when I have calls with customers who are sort of surprised to learn that this functionality is already baked in. So hopefully by touching on those today, we'll be able to show you all a little useful tool that you can add into your arsenal. Going through building your own reports quickly and without too much complexity. There is a lot that you can do with a report builder, and it is a little overwhelming if you were to just look at the sort of UI contextless. So hopefully today we can add that context and make it a little bit sort of easier to digest. Sort of touching back on that first point, identifying customers that are at risk of churning, and then how we can act on that through the report builder, sort of how we can go into the other elements of the CRM, the contact data, and that sort of things. And then, yeah, taking a look at our redesigned report builder. So on that note, we're going to crack straight into a demo here, which I've got open. So we've got a demo system here that should be on your screen now. That's my Jam. This is our test one that we use for all things demonstrative. It is a Jam sales company. You may have guessed by that name. And so a lot of the stuff you'll see is related to that. The first one we're going to look at is you may be very familiar with your account manager dashboard. This is the one that we've got open here. And we're going to take a look at this customer trends tile down in the bottom right here. We see generally this is one that's a little less used than some of the others. So we thought we'd touch on it today. We can see in the bottom right here, we've got this sort of all, and then we've got these little tabs here. So we can see this little pie chart here is showing us the green is our growing customers and our red is our declining customers. And by going into the sort of growing and declining stats, we can see them all shown here. And by going into see more, this is going to open it up in our proper report view. And this is going to give us our 3 columns here and show all of that. This is getting information from obviously from the system, but it's obviously useful for declining customers to sort of see, this customer may have spent a lot more with us last year. So I've just seen a question, sorry, about someone not being able to see the screen. Is that not coming through for anyone else? I can stop and share that again if that's an issue. Please let me know. It may just be you, Faye. I'm not so sure. Let me stop sharing and start again. It does seem to be just on your end, I'm afraid, Faye. Perhaps try rejoining and then see if that sorts that out. Thank you for sounding off that you can see, Callum. I'll carry on with this for now and let us know if there's any other issues, and hopefully you'll be able to see it on the recording if there are any troubles at the moment. To get back to it, being able to see these declining customers here, we can open this and see that difference. So we can compare that to this year and then the previous year, or the last 365 days, and then the previous. And then obviously we're able to open those those customer records from here and go and communicate with the customer. You may see, you may already know why the sales have declined. They may have lost, certain branches. They may have less demand from you. There could be any situation, but this allows you to see that data in a sort of a big broad strokes that you can then drill down into and reach out to the customer that way. Similarly to this, we have our missing orders tile. Now this one is based off of our RFM data. Some of you may be familiar with the RFM analysis table right in the middle here, and this is based off of similar things to that. So it's based off of the recency and frequency that customers should be placing orders. So this is going to be based off of historical data for that specific customer. And it's going to be seeing, if customer A has placed typically an order a month for the last, couple months or year or so, we're going in to see, when that's not the case, that's going to pop up here on missing orders. So that's going to be different for each customer. It's not going to be set, as a general rule to expect an order from every customer every month, for example. It'll just be based on individual information for that customer, sort of learning their ordering rhythm, and flags them when they've sort of overrun that. It's giving us a couple of examples here on those dates that we would have expected them to order. And then we can click see more and have a better view of that as well. And this is then going to show us that RFM segment that they're in, sort of prioritize them accordingly, and then the day since last order. Obviously, this is for our test system. Hopefully, in your live CRMs, these numbers are all a lot smaller, and you're able to save those customers and get those sales back. We're going to jump off of the dashboard now here and take a look at some other useful ones. So we're going to go into our sales section here and go to reports. And then we've got a list of our core ones. Now, these will all exist in the system already, the ones that have the system next to them. So we're going to go look at customers who have not bought X, which is one of our core reports. It does what it says on the tin, but it's going to show you the customers who have not bought X product. So in this case, we've got nothing in it. So we're going to go and type in a certain product SKU. So we're going to type in for this demo gel, which is going to be for the gelatin product, on this jam sales company. And we're going to see a list of customers here who have not bought that product. So these may be customers you may want to upsell to, maybe something, you're trying to sell a promotion. You may want to reach out to these customers and try and make this sale. And obviously, using the report builder, we're able to sort of do the inverse of this as well. Rather than looking at customers who have bought it, we can also go and see customers who have not bought it. So we've currently got this showing just the one filter, but we can expand all of them and then change this with sales transactions where none. So this is looking at the sales transactions that a company has. Sales transactions, I'll probably say a lot, and it may be self-explanatory to some of you, but that just means any sort of sales order or invoice in the CRM. It also includes credits, but those are typically going to be excluded from a lot of the sales-based reports. We can go and look at where sales transactions, instead of where none, we can say where any. Now we're looking at where any sales transaction for this company, this customer, does include this product. So these are that list of customers who have bought this gelatin product, for example. There's another core one that I think is quite useful, which we can go take a very quick look at by going back to sales reports, which is customers who have bought X but not Y. Again, this quite does what it says on the tin. So we can type in sort of an example product here. So we can, again, go to that gelatin product. And let me try and think of another example off the top of my head. I think there'd be a jam lids. There we are. And we can search for that. So in this case, these aren't exactly custom products that you may sell together. But if you have a pair of products, you often sell A with B. It may be quite useful to use this core report and look at customers who have bought, sort of, in this case, with product Y as our jam lids. So we may be selling lids and jars separately. You may be looking at customers who have bought jars but haven't bought lids in this case. You may be looking to upsell those, reach out to those customers and try and see what we can do to make that sale. And we'll click back here and sort of make a custom report. So we've done a little bit of the changing of the filtering here, but I'll go into a custom report here and sort of make one from scratch. And then you'll be able to see sort of that process that I'll make, as well as anything that I do in this case. So picking the fields, changing the filters, and any groupings is something that you can mirror on any other report. So even on this one here, this core one that exists in the system, we can go and select fields and add another column that we may want, because we may want to see another bit of data, in this case here. So we can go either down to reports and make one, or you can click this global create button and make a new report this way. We've got our start from scratch and use a template. This first one, I'm going to start from scratch and sort of show you how you can use that. And then we're going to use a template as a bit of a demonstration in a little bit. So that user template is our sort of a brand new piece that you may not be familiar with, especially even if you've used the report builder a fair bit in the past. So we'll start from scratch here. And this is going to pick any record type. So record type means anything like a company, a customer, as if those aren't the same thing, a company, a contact, a quote, problem, that sort of thing, that we can see in the system to then report on. In this case, we're going to do one on sales transactions. So we could either search that here, and that's going to show us our sales transaction. But in this case, there's actually a bunch of the most important ones, sort of most popular ones, right in the center here. So we're just going to click sales transaction, and that's going to get started for us. It's going to give you a little bit of a preview now. And this is something that it didn't used to do before, showing what those examples are going to look like. So this is going to give us just a handful of columns that it's picked out, and then populated that data, in this case, with the data that would be on those. So we're going to select that and then move into select fields. This is where you pick what makes up that report. So these are the columns. It's got a handful in there for us already, but we can go in and pick some more. So on a sales transaction, it's obviously going to have the product that's affiliated with it, which is probably something that we're going to want to see. What we've got here is description, is the description of the sales transaction. Now, this typically is going to be the product name, but we may want to see the product itself so that we can confirm that that's the same thing, as well as have a direct link into the product in the CRM. So by clicking this show more here, we gain access to a whole, plethora of additional fields. So by clicking that, we can then scroll through this list and find the product, which is something that we want. And we can open that list here and we can select the SKU and we can select the product name. These are fields that we're going to want to have. And we're going to also want to have ordered, which is going to be the quantity that's been ordered, in this case on the sales transaction. So we can see that, get that in here now, and that's going to show us that quantity in this little preview. And we'll probably also want the company name. Now, this is something that we can find by navigating through the invoice account. So the invoice account is effectively the company record that the sales transaction was made against, but it's going to be the account record sort of on the account management side of things. So that's going to be your unleashed sales account or your Sage 50 account, that sort of thing, not the prospect company, but what it's related to for the integration. So we'll go into the invoice account here. And by looking at this, it's going to have its own default company, sort of what that's tied to in the CRM. It could be a case that there are multiple companies for the same ledger, and we'll open default company here and then select that name. This is a little bit confusing. Obviously, I could completely understand we're sort of going through the weeds here, and it helps that I know what I'm looking for. But you're also able to use this search fields button here and then search that list. So we could say company name, for example. Ooh, it's gone a little slow for me. There we are, and it's going to show me that list here, default company. I've typed it in twice. It's gone a little slower. But we type in company here, and it's going to show us all the fields with that in, so we can find the operating code and the company name and that sort of thing right there. So we're then going to add filters. Oh, before I do that, I should reorder this. It's not the most useful to have sort of the product be split out over the report and the name all at different places. So by clicking these dots here, we can drag and drop and reorganize this report. So we're going to have the SKU higher up, and we probably want the product name next to the description. They're mostly going to be the same thing, but you may have description only lines, so it could be different. And we'll move the quantity up a little as well. And we'll leave the company name all the way at the end there. So now we're going to add a couple of filters to show some specific data rather than looking at every sales transaction you've ever made. May not be the most useful report ever. We can filter that down to be a certain time frame or for certain customers, or maybe even for certain products. You may want to see product sales trends, that sort of thing. So we'll do add filter here. And much like last time, we can use this little search field here rather than searching for it ourselves. So by clicking search here, we may want the transaction date, which is something that we had there. If we type in date, it's going to show us a list of dates, and we can see here transaction date. That's the one we're looking for. And we'll update that. That's going to add that in. And then we're going to want to see the transactions, let's say within this year. So we can click this and we'll select year from there. There are all sorts of ways you can filter down on dates. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory, but by adding a date in, you then get access to that whole list that you can then pick and choose between. So we filtered that down now to show us all of our sales transactions from this year. We can see a mix of invoices and orders that are showing up here. Might be why this one doesn't have an invoice number yet. And then finally, we can group and summarize this as well. So we can go into the group and summarize, which will be showing in the bottom right here. And also at any point, if you don't wish to continue with the next step as part of making this report, if you don't need to filter it, if you don't need to group it, you can click run report and that'll just finish it right there and then. But we'll click group and summarize here. And then we can organize this data together. So in this case, we're just probably going to want to summarize the report. We're looking at, the sales for the last year. So we're probably going to want to summarize that whole report. That's going to give us a total of that. And then we can also group those together. So we're going to want to find something that we may want to group them together on. For example, the order number. We may want to see which of those sales were part of the same order. So we can drag that in there as well. And then if we're going to run this report here, this has obviously made it a little grouped, but we can see the total sales there, and then all of these individual groups for these sales. So we might actually want to undo that. Let me find something that may be a little more interesting to look at. If we go and do product SKU as a group, that's going to then group up all of our products, so we can see which products were sold a certain amount of times. and then the total sales value. But then obviously we're only seeing the total sales value and the product quantity. You may want to see the summaries for those products. So we can go back into that summarizing grouping and then add that base value into this summary here, which is going to summarize this group rather than summarizing the whole thing. And then we'll submit that. And then that's going to summarize those groups as we were looking for. So now we can see each individual product. We click on this little grouping here. It's going to open it up. We're going to see every individual sales transaction that was made for it and that total value of those sales transactions that's been made over the time frame that we've filtered by. So hopefully that's all made sense. We'll sort of leave out of this for now. I don't need to make any sort of saves here, and then I will make another report here. This time we're going to and use the new templates. So using a template sort of does what it says on the tin, really. It's going to build a report based off of another report that already exists in the system. So you can just sort of make a starting point and then go from there. So we may want to look at our customers who have not bought X report that we looked at earlier. We may want to sort of make that and go from there. So we can go into customize template, make any changes we want to make here. But for now, let's just click run report. Let's get it spat out to us so we can look at and then customize from there. So now we can go and we can see what we had before. We can add the filters back in and we can pin this up here. So this maybe, rather than it going back and forth, so we can see it all the time. And if we show all the filters again, we can see where the product SKU is, we'll have it put it back into the gel, for example. And we're looking for where no sales transactions have this product in. But we could also have it be, if we are looking for where people have bought this product, we could say where any is this, as we looked at before. But then we may also want to say, and with sales transactions, they may also be the order date would be this year, for example. It's sort of a combination of those two reports. So we can say this. Yeah, so now we're looking at these are the customers who have bought this product this year, for example. So that we can sort of filter that data down specifically. May I want to try and, upsell them another thing specifically based on promotions and that sort of thing. But based off of the templates, we're able to start from a point of a completed report and then work from there. And hopefully that all makes sense. And then finally, we're just going to go off of another sort of a way to kickstart a report by looking on another dashboard report. We could also just give a quick demonstration here. So for saving a report, obviously I sort of declined to do this before, but I'll do it here as a bit of a demonstration. By clicking save, it's going to ask me to name the report. So I'll just put webinar test, for example, and pick which report group that's going to go in. So if that's a sales report, a product report, wherever you wish to save it, that's obviously up to you. We'll leave this in other reports so I don't disrupt anyone else's demos in the future. And then we can also save it as just for me or to share with all CRM users. So if you may want to make a report for your whole sales team, you are obviously going to want to share it with everyone so they can all see it. This is something that you can go and change later. In fact, I'll show you how right now. We'll save it just for me. That's just going to save and then rename that at the top here. Get that out of the way. And then if we click on the three dots top right, we can do make public. So that's then going to make this version of the report a public version that anyone can see in the system if they're going to that. Next up, we'll go to the dashboard and we'll look at another way to sort of iterate upon a completed report. So we'll jump from the account manager here to the sales representative dashboard. This is obviously a little blank in our demo system. Hopefully it's a lot more populated on yours. And then we can sort of pick an example here and sort of drill down further into one of those existing reports. So we can see we've got these like list of opportunities here. So this is just our open opportunities with an end date based in this month. One of the core ones in the system, and then you can also see that for next month. But we can see more. We can open that up, that list of opportunities, and then we can also make changes to this report as a bit of a starting point. So we can go from this and then make any changes that we need to, just as we have been doing. So we can go in and add filters. We can see this is already filtered a fair bit. These page argument ones are pretty rare to see, but they may exist in some default systems. Default system reports. These mean that they're looking for fields that are set based off of the user. So the salesperson ID by page argument means that it's looking for the salesperson to be the user that's currently looking at it. Obviously, this is a sales representative dashboard. It's designed for individual sales reps to be looking at information. But we can go in and filter this down and sort of use that as another little starting off point If we wanted to make any changes to an existing one that you're liking a lot, using in the system day to day, but you may want to make some changes to, you can go in and do it this way. Interestingly to note, any changes made to this report will not actually reflect in the dashboard tile, despite them being very, very similar and without any changes just based on the same data. The dashboard tiles themselves are calculated daily by a sort of a general process to get those visual graphics that they display. So any changes made to the report on the back end of it aren't actually going to sort of bleed through into those dashboard tiles. Hopefully from this, you'll feel confident enough to sort of have a play around with it yourself. As you can see, that sort of prompted me for a little thumbs up, thumbs down with the new report builder after I gave that a go. So if you do try out the new templates, feel free to give that a review. And any feedback you've got on that would be great. We're still obviously working it out. We don't want to make it a feature that nobody likes. So if you've got any qualms with it, please let us know. And with that, we'll sort of jump onto the Q&A. Oh, sorry, before then, we've got a little bit of our progress of what we could do. So we can start with that dashboard tile that we were looking at right there at the end, pick an example that we were looking at, and then narrow that down. So click on the show more, those select fields, add more columns in, filter it down a bit, and then we can filter that down even further, save that, and get that in a separate place for your sort of daily use or whenever you may need it, rather than having to add those back in every time. You don't want to accidentally X off of a report without saving it. And any questions? I can see there were a couple that were asked during the the webinar that I'll jump to first. So is the customer trends that you can set a date which the difference shows, e.g. sales 2025 FY versus 2026 FY by changing those dates? In the customer trends, so were you referring to, I think that was when I just started. Let me open up the CRM again just to look at that. So we were looking at the account manager. Customer trends. So this is last 365 days and previous 365 days. So rather than an FY point, this is looking at a certain, literally just last 365 days, like since right now, rather than a certain FY period. So you could make your own report based and filter that down, but these core ones that exist are based on specifically the last 365 days. It would be possible to make a report and then sort of show that based upon your sales figures from a certain financial year from a standpoint and filter that date range, but not this one exactly. So hopefully with the from after this webinar, you'd be able to go and make that yourself, but not something that out of the box is able to do that, I'm afraid. And then we've been asked, should the RFM analysis add up to 100%? If I recall, that was for the missing orders. That was when I was showing that, but I can't see a percentage. The percent in RFM analysis add up to 100%. I believe it should in general as a percent of your customers. It may be a little off. Obviously, these are all quite small for this demonstrative account, but I think they should typically should be the percentage of your overall customers in the system. Are there any other questions about the webinars at all? Got the little Q&A slide again. If not, then feel free to take a look at the webinar when it's done. This will be uploaded to our YouTube in not so long, and you'll be able to see that there. And thank you for your couple of questions. If you've got anything else that you may think of down the line, you may want to ask, feel free to ask our AI chat bot that we've got in the CRM, the little guy that pops up the little intercom in the bottom right. Typically, he's going to be able to answer any sort of usage-based questions, or reach out to your customer success manager or onboarder to help you with any questions like that. So if I've spoken to you in the past, feel free to drop me an email, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And even if I've not, feel free to reach me at xander.blackburn@theaccessgroup.com. And we'll be putting this together up on our sort of webinars page in our more resources, so you can see that once that's uploaded. And I believe that's all we've got for today. So thank you very much for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Yeah, that's all from me. Have a great day, everyone.